Good morning or good evening, everyone, or whatever time you're listening. Anyway, this is Enlightened Living, Truth and Oneness discussions, right? Is that what we're calling ourselves? All
Yes.
right. So back with another interesting topic.
Okay, so this topic is a lot of people have probably heard a decent amount of information. If you haven't heard anything about this, it's like even there's things about it in films and it's like there's references everywhere. What we're talking about today is aliens.
So I came across it's called Alien Interview, and I'm sure people have heard about this. I don't know, but on YouTube, excerpts from this interview are on a channel called Prison Planet, or no, the excerpts are called Prison Planet. So if you search Prison Planet on YouTube, you should be able to find these. The book itself is called Alien Interview. It's based on personal notes and interview transcriptions provided by Matilda O'Donnell McElroy, and it is edited by Lawrence Spencer. Okay, so obviously, from the title, you can tell it's an interview with an alien, okay? So, basically, let me try to give the background information here. So, I came across this. I was actually looking at a channel, I think it's called The Moore Show, where the guy interviews different channelers. And one of the channelers on there, I kind of looked at some more of their stuff, and one video that they did, I think her name is Krista Reza, and she did a video on this alien interview thing, and then I looked into, because I thought it was interesting, so I listened to it, found the alien interview, the Prison Planet thing on YouTube, and then found the alien interview book and read that. So the book, you can find it on PDF form, and I believe it's a free book. You just search the internet for alien interview, and then the author, the transcripts, the Matilda O'Donnell lady, and then you'll be able to find it. It's 319 pages. I believe the actual interview goes up to, I think, 150 pages, and the rest of it is like footnotes and stuff, backup information, if you know what I mean. All right, so this Matilda lady was a nurse in the military, I think the Army. Probably should look in. And she basically she had the privilege of interviewing an alien in Roswell, that whole alien spacecraft crash incident in 1949. Let me look at this up. Hold on. So yeah, she was the person that interviewed the alien, basically. I'm gonna look through this real quick.
Okay. And a lot of people speculate there's many different sides to this story. Some people believe it's all a hoax. Some people believe it was like some sort of a cover up. Some people believe it was like some sort of military operation. Nobody really knows for sure, but there's definitely a lot of information from this book, so definitely recommend looking into it and reading it yourself, see what you get from it. And also, one thing I'd like to mention is when I was in training, I was actually at Area 49, and you could see down the cliffside that there was like guard posts that went to Area 50, where Area 51 would have been, but it wasn't on our map, obviously. But it's interesting because it's like it does exist, but who knows exactly what is in there? Nobody really knows for certain. But did you find what you're looking for?
Yeah. So you're saying that yes, they are hiding things potentially in the military. All right. So, yeah. So it was 1947. And so the author, or the editor of the book, he came in contact with Mrs. Elroy, McElroy, I mean. She basically sent him these classified documents that she got a hold of, and asked him to publish them to the public, because she's been holding. And this happened in 2008, I believe. So toward the end of her life, she'd been keeping these classified documents, and then decided to send them to this guy because he dealt with extraterrestrial stuff. And she told him to please, like, if you can, without getting yourself killed, try to make this available to the public. And so that's what he did. But it's very interesting because he has all the kind of back and forth, or the thoughts about all of it written down here, and then his how he met her, or how he initially met her, because I believe he met her before. Not he didn't meet her, but he became aware of her beforehand, because I think he contacted her because he was writing a book, um, and I guess he had thought she was involved in the whole Roswell thing, or somehow his and her name was attached to it. I don't know. Um, and so he wanted information about a book he was writing, and then I guess since he had contacted her, then later on she decided he would be, I guess, the right person to send all this stuff to get it published. But anyway, so that is the beginning of, I guess, the how this happens. But basically, yeah. So in 1947, she says that. Can I look through here and try to
Yeah.
find the actual?
So it's a little bit of a backstory on that kind of thing too. It's like, so these people know that there's an incident that happened or whatever. There's like some sort of a crash. They knew that happened, and obviously, usually everyone knows military response first. Sometimes there can be like a civilian or something like that that might get to a location first, but most of the time it's the military gets to these locations first. And obviously she's military, so they start to go to this place. And what happens next?
Okay, just to get the backstory a little bit better. All right, so he says he's never met her in person. He only spoke with her on the phone for about 20 minutes. It was back in 1998. He wanted to call her for a brief interview. He doesn't say why exactly he decided to send her a copy of his book, The Oz Factor, um, or ask her about the Oz Factor book that he was trying to get published. But this is why he contacted her briefly before, and then later on she sends him the package. But anyway, so he says he can't vouch that she actually exists because he never met her in person, but he did speak to her on the phone regarding this other book that he was writing. Um, but yeah, so she sends him the book, and then in 2000, that was in 1998, and then 2007, she sends him a letter with the documents, and then basically she's like, the last time I spoke to you was about 8 years ago. During your brief telephone interview with me, you asked me to assist you with the research for the Oz Factor book, and you're writing because you suspected that I might know something that would help your investigation into the possibility that extraterrestrials beings may have influenced the history of Earth. When we spoke, I told you that I did not have any information that I could share with you about anything. Since then, I have read your book and found it very interesting and compelling. You are obviously a man who has done his homework. And then she goes on to say, I reconsidered my position for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is my realization that you were right. I do have a responsibility to myself at least. I cannot possibly tell you the personal hell of ethical irresolution and spiritual ambivalence I have endured since 1947. And she doesn't want to keep playing the game of maybe, so basically she says, I'm going to send you this stuff so that at least I did something. Okay. All right. So the story starts, her story begins in 1947. She was a nurse in the Army, and she is a driver for one of the higher up people. They get a call to come into Roswell area because there was some incident, and so she drives the upper command person to the site. And also because she's a nurse, they can use her because there's beings that crashed in this spacecraft, and so she saw the alien, I guess, and kind of used her medical background to kind of make sure it was doing okay and whatnot, and then realized that the alien was communicating telepathically with her, and then from then on, I think the whole thing lasts like maybe a month with back and forth her interviewing the alien because it would only communicate with her and not anyone else. And yeah, so this is what this book is about, basically the transcripts from the interview. So hold on.
That's pretty interesting. It's like, imagine being able to be one of the first responders to an incident like that, where it's like going into it blindly, and then what you're seeing, like when you're walking up, and you're like, what? It's like imagine being a nurse going up and trying to treat another humanoid, and you're like, I think they're okay, I guess. It's like, and then realizing like the magnitude of the situation, like what is gonna be found, but and obviously it's like at first you're just like, oh, I just hope I can help, but then later you're like, there's definitely like, okay, I want to make sure nothing gets taken from this for like war efforts, but like just for good and for helping people. So it's like it's just a very powerful moment that a lot of people like. Obviously, on the spot, she probably didn't realize what this was gonna end up being for her. So it's like a lot of conflict, especially if like these things are fully true, because like it does challenge a lot of the belief systems a lot of people do have about a lot of things. And then also realizing that, hey, guess what, we're not alone in this world. It's like there's things that can be in and out in different ways.
Yeah, and this is really because I want to. I think you just have to really like get into it or look at it, find it, and look it through it yourself because it's very interesting. Then you have to decide what you're gonna do with this information, right? But so she realizes when she comes in contact with the alien that it is talking to her telepathically, and so the first question she asks is, "Are you injured?" And the answer is no. And she asks, "What medical assistance do you require?" And it says none. Yeah, she asks, "Do you need food or water or anything?" It says no. And then she says, "Do you have any special environmental needs like temperature, atmosphere, air pressure?" She says, "No, I'm not a biological being." And then she's like, does your spacecraft have any?" The nurse is asking the alien this telepathically. Or maybe she's saying it, and the alien's answering back telepathically. I wasn't actually sure. No, I think she's asking telepathically, but basically that's the first interview, and then in the beginning she realizes that the answers are very like one answer type answers because the alien doesn't know English fully, and so over the course of their interviewing and talking together, she gives the alien books and it learns English, and then it's able to communicate more thoroughly or more in complete sentences or whatever, or not well more technically. So she says that. So here she mentions that she refers to alien as a her, but it didn't seem to have any kind of
Gender,
sexual,
sex.
gender or anything. But she had a strong feminine presence and demeanor, and her physiology was asexual. She didn't have any internal or external reproductive organs. Her body was more like a doll or a robot. There weren't any organs. There was just biological cells and some sort of electrical circuit system, but there was no like organs. And says the stature and body was quite short and petite, 40 inches tall. The head was disproportionately large, long arms, legs, and torso. The arms were thin. There was 3 fingers on in each of the 2 hands and feet. They were somewhat prehensile. There was no operational nose or mouth or ears. The eyes were quite large. And she said when the alien looked at her, she seemed to penetrate right through her, like she had X-ray vision. And she said she found that a little bit embarrassing at first, but she realized that the alien was just trying to basically is communicating directly with her. She said the alien's name is Ariel, or Arl. So it says, Arl explained to me that it was not mechanical like a robot or was not biological. It is animated directly by her spiritual being. Technically, from a medical standpoint, I would say that Ariel's body could not even be called alive. Her doll body is not a biological form with cells and so forth. So then, yeah, they start with the first interview, and her answers are kind of like one answer, sort of 1 or 2 word answers at first because she doesn't know the language. And then I think she asks her at some point, the nurse asks Ariel, "Why did your spacecraft crash?" And then She answers, it was struck by an electrical discharge from the atmosphere which caused us to lose control. And she says, why were you in the area? She says, investigation of burning clouds, radiation, explosions. And she asks, how does your spacecraft fly? She said, it's controlled through mind. It responds to thought commands. And the nurse, Matilda, Officer McElroy, she's mentioning how because the information is coming through in thought form, obviously she had to interpret what she was saying to write it down on paper. And so she mentioned several times throughout the transcripts that she isn't sure if she got it in words as accurately, or she tried to get it as accurately as possible in words, but obviously there's probably some lost in translation there, but she did the best that she could. So she mentions that throughout, that it's hard to kind of like when you're writing down your dreams, it's like, well, let me just write down what I saw, sorry, right? Let's see. She asks her where she's from, and then she says the home, birthplace, world of the domain. She won't tell her where this place is because she doesn't want to. And she says, why have your people made your existence known to the people of Earth? And she says, watch, observe. Why haven't you made your people... Why haven't your people made yourselves aware to the people on Earth? And she says, watch, observe, no contact is her answer. And she says, have your people visited Earth previously? She answers, periodic, repeating observations. How long have you known about Earth? He says, long before humans. And she asks, what is the state of development of your civilization? She says, ancient, trillions of years, always, above all others, planned, schedule, process, progress, win, high goals, ideas. And here's an interesting one. She asks, do you believe in God? And the alien answers, we think it is. Make it continue, always. And she says, in her notes, that she says, I'm not sure that the alien being does not understand the concept of God or worship as we do. I assume that the people in her civilization were all atheists. My impression was that they think very highly of themselves and are very prideful indeed. And then later on, she comes back to this and says, oh, she misinterpreted kind of what the alien was saying. And anyone who goes through and reads it will kind of understand later, I think. Let's see. And so that was kind of the first interview. And then she goes through again and talks to her. And she asks the alien at some point, because I guess the alien stopped communicating with her, or when other people came in the room, she wouldn't communicate. So she asked her at some point, why have you stopped communicating? And then she says, no, stop, others, hidden, covered, secret fear. So what she's saying is that she can't communicate with the other people because they have a secret fear, or, they have a secret agenda. Basically, they're blocking. She says that she didn't sense any fear of the alien from the alien. She had no fear of the humans at all. And basically, but also knew that they had hidden agenda. Most of the other people had hidden agendas, and she didn't trust them, but she didn't fear them. And she didn't want to. She couldn't communicate, and probably also didn't want to communicate with them. And so the nurse, she kind of gets a little bit in trouble by her commanding officers because they think she's making it up, and they're like, you must be making it up, because why are they only communicating with you? And they would give her lists of questions to go in and ask the alien, and try to get her to communicate with someone other than the nurse, but it wouldn't do that. So they kind of just gave in and was like, all right, well, you go ahead and communicate then. They would give her a list of questions, and then at some point, the alien, I think after it learns English, because then they realize, because she only knows an ancient language, because they hadn't been back to Earth for a while, so they knew some of the older languages like Sanskrit. And so they gave her books and let her watch shows and whatever, and so within a matter of a few days she had a full vocabulary, and so she was able to communicate more. But after that point, she stops answering questions. She says, I'm just going to basically talk to you and you can listen and write it down, and she wouldn't answer any more questions. And I think that also made some of the people mad. And so at some point she says, oh, here. So she says, can you write any Earth language? And she says, no. She says, do you understand numbers or mathematics? And she says, yes, I'm an officer, pilot, and engineer. And then she says, can you draw symbols that we can translate into our own language? She's like, uncertain. And she says, is there any other signs or means of communication that you can use to help us understand your thoughts more clearly? She says, no. um, and then they ask her about where can you draw us a map of where your star system is from? She says no. And she says, will your people come and save you, basically? She's like, maybe they will. And she says, how long would it take to get here? And she's like, minutes or hours. And then at some point she says, how can we make them understand that we do not intend to harm you? She's talking about the wait. Oh, how can we make the officers and the other people in the army understand that we do not intend... Wait, actually, I don't know this question. Hold on, I'm getting confused here. Oh, okay, so she says, how can we make you, alien Ariel, understand that we don't intend to harm you? And the alien's answer is, intentions are clear. You see in your mind's images, feelings. And then she asks, if you're not a biological entity, why do you refer to yourself as feminine? And she says, I'm creator, mother, source. So there's a...
It's kind of interesting. It's like, it reminds me of a movie, like how to gain information. It's a older movie where there's like this robot named Johnny Five who gets like, he gets off the assembly line with like attack robots and wants to like learn stuff. And he goes to this place and he's like, I need input. So like this girl's like, input, what? And then he like starts flipping through a book and he goes, more input, more input. And then he starts just reading all these books and then he's actually able to talk to her instead of just saying like input or hi, hello. It's like he's able to actually tell the lady like what he wants to talk about. It's like, oh, I'm looking for this place, or I'm doing this, or hello. And then she's like, what? And he's like, the input, the books you gave me, it's like I was reading those and now I can use those words to talk to you. That's kind of like the same kind of thing where it's like you can't speak, but you have an idea of like how to, and then you get the information. You're like, oh, okay.
Vocabulary. Yeah. And then here's the one spot where she asks her about asking more questions. So she says, what assurance or proof do you require from us that will make you feel safe enough to answer our questions? And then RL answers, only she speaks, only she hears, only she questions, no others. Must learn, no understand. I think after this point, that was the end of that interview. And after this point, she learns more English grammar. And I think it takes several days of her getting books and the aliens requesting more books and more stuff to look at, and she just looks through it while the nurse McAlroy sits there with her as she's going through all this information. And then she said every once in a while she'll answer a question, like the Ariel will ask for clarification for something or references or something, or what does this mean, or what, kind of something like that, and she'll clarify it for her. And so this went on for several days, and then basically after that, she just starts talking. And she tells him like their whole history of where she's from and what's going on. And then she says, and there's things I want to tell you guys about your history of your Earth, because you guys have been lied to. And I want to clarify some things for you guys because you don't understand, obviously, and this is why that you're in the state that you're in. So I want to read just a little bit of this, okay. But I want a short break so I can just look through it. So hold on a second.
So that's interesting. It's like learning the information and then, like, oh, wait a second. Some of the stuff that you guys are reading or getting taught is absolutely wrong. But a lot of people, like, they kind of have this understanding anyways that a lot of the stuff that they're learning isn't quite right. But then because of school and, like, you getting tested on it and, like, you getting praised when you get it right and, like, getting reprimanded when you get it wrong, they kind of, like, just pound it into your system that this is the way things are. But a lot of people definitely, and it's like everyone knows there's something wrong with this kind of stuff. It seems like the people that are kind of blind and dumb to the whole situation do well in school, like high school and stuff like that. And then the free thinkers, it's like it's a place. This world sometimes can be a place that's kind of like lonely, because when you start to free think, you
Become an outcast.
you become an outcast. Yeah, it's like you're different, so everybody treats you like you're different, and they're like, what? Like, why are you acting like that? You know, this is what smart people do, like this, and then they get praised and they get success or whatever based on like what we deem as successful, and the people that are like trying to figure out like what's really going on get kind of like cast into the shadows, and everyone's like, you're so weird and different, like you don't belong with us, and it makes it a kind of a lonely place sometimes.
But so yes, you're right. It's very interesting the world that we live in. But if you actually read through this interview with Arl the alien, and there's actually lots of other resources out there too, but this sort of, I feel like it in some ways, a lot of ways, it actually kind of say corroborates a lot of different stories of the history of the true history of humanity and or the earth and like our spiritual beings and all that stuff. So it kind of goes right along with what I already have seen seems to be true. And that's why I kind of gravitated toward it, because to me, I'm like, wow, this actually looks like it might be somewhat true, at least. I don't know, you know what I mean? But and like I said, the story lines up with a lot of truth that we've already kind of pieced together too. But so basically, after she learns all the language, then the McGalloway asks her, "What would you like to say, Arl?" And then she goes and explains, who she is and where she comes from, and I can kind of briefly go through this. She says, "I've been a part of the domain expeditionary force in this sector of space for several thousand years. However, I have not personally had intimate contact with beings on Earth since 5000 BCE. It is not my primary function to interact with the inhabitants of planets within the domain. I am an officer, pilot, and engineer with my duties to perform. Nonetheless, although I am fluent in 347 other languages within the domain, I have not been exposed to your English language. The last Earth language with which I was conversant was the Sanskrit language of the Vedic hymns. At that time, I was a member of a mission sent to investigate the loss of a domain base located in the Himalayan mountains. An entire battalion of officers, pilots, communications, and administrative personnel disappeared and the base destroyed. Several million years ago, I was trained and served as an investigation, data evaluation, and program development officer for the domain. Because I was experienced in the technology, I was sent to Earth as part of the search team. One of my duties involved interrogation of the human population that inhabited the adjoining area at the time. Many of the people in that region reported sighting vimanas, or spacecraft, in the area. Following the logical extension of evidence and observation, I led my team to the discovery that there was still an old empire ships and well-hidden old empire installations in the solar system of which we had been completely unaware. So the old empire is what used to control this part of the solar system and used to control Earth. And her job and the domain's job has been, over the past thousands of years, have been to take down the old empire. And so in a way, it explains, as you go through these transcripts, Earth and sort of where we are today, as far as like a lot of the struggles and stuff that we experience here, has a lot to do with the old empire ruling. So she says, "Now I'm prepared to give certain information that I feel will be of great value to you. I will tell you the truth. Although truth is relative to all other truth, I wish to share with you as honestly and accurately as possible, truth as I see it within the boundaries of my integrity to myself, to my race, and without violating my obligations to the organization I serve and I've sworn to uphold and protect." She says, "Okay, will you answer questions from the gallery now?" And the gallery is the group of officers, the upper officers of the army that she's in. And Arl answers, "No, I will not answer questions. I will provide information to you that I think will be beneficial to the well-being of the immortal spiritual beings who comprise humanity, and that will foster the survival of all the myriad life forms in the environment of Earth, as it is part of my mission to ensure the preservation of Earth. Personally, it is my conviction that all sentient beings are immortal spiritual beings. This includes human beings. For the sake of accuracy and simplicity, I will use the made-up word is-be, because the primary nature of an immortal being is that they live in a timeless state of is, and the only reason for their existence is that they decide to be. And then she says, no matter how lowly their station in a society, every is-be deserves the respect and treatment that I myself would like to receive from others. Each person on Earth continues to be an is-be whether they are aware of this fact or not. And so she goes into the history of Earth and tries to clarify a lot of things, and let's say you can interject there, or not interject.
Yeah,
But
it's interesting when you think what the whole isby concept is like, and they're saying like it doesn't matter where you're from or like what level or whatever, you deserve respect from people and such things. It's like that's something that we're trying to like push forward more and more with the world, especially with like truth and oneness as a whole. It's like that's what the whole idea is: truth and oneness, getting everybody to realize who we are and what we are, and like bringing people together and showing that we're all worth having respect instead of this like kind of like constantly pitting people against each other, and like, well, I'm better than you because such and such a thing, like I have more money or I have more power or I'm stronger or all these other things, or it's like I have a better caste than you. It's like all these systems are like, I guess what we consider like what old empire or whatever
yeah,
kind of systems. And then the thing is, everyone deep down knows that they don't want to do this to other people, but they've been like raised or taught that it was okay to do this kind of stuff. Some people have no problem doing it, but that's a completely different
well,
thing.
the interesting thing is that what Ariel, when she gets more into how the human beings of Earth got here, it almost kind of explains that concept or that idea, what you kind of just mentioned a little bit more, which is kind of interesting actually. Maybe we'll get to that. Maybe do another video on it and kind of get to that part because it's very interesting. Yeah, but go ahead.
It is interesting. It's just like one of those things, that we've all seen it. Yeah, unless you were born like really wealthy, like on the top 1% kind of a thing, and like that's how you were raised. And even though some of those people actually have seen it, and like had that, it's like it feels weird or like almost wrong inside of you or your system to like be mean or rude to somebody else, but like obviously like they teach you that it's an okay thing to do.
But for some people, they seem to be able to do it just fine.
Yeah. It
Wow.
doesn't matter what system they come from, they seem to be able to do it just fine.
Yeah, but yeah, it gets really interesting. I said Ariel explains, through explaining the history of like the Earth and like how humanity got here and all that. Like I said, it kind of gives light to, if you take this for true, then it explains almost perfectly why things are the way they are, sort of, and why you have such differences in like types of people and the way people can act toward other people and whatnot. But it's very, very interesting. Like I said, if you want to research this more, look up alien interview, and you should find the abridged version of the transcript on YouTube. If you do internet search for it's Prison Planet. Sorry, you look up Prison Planet on YouTube, and you should be able to find it. And if you look up alien interview Matilda McElroy on the internet, you should be able to find a PDF version of the book. Just download it and read through it, and you might find some insight. But I definitely want to revisit like the next half of this book and kind of pick out some interesting points through. The whole thing is interesting, but just pick out some interesting points. So maybe we'll do another video on this. And kind of wrap up it. But basically, hopefully, if anyone listens to this, hopefully you find it interesting and look more into this and see what you think about it. Yep. But until then, have a great day, everyone.
All right, everyone.